Karen Lambert with Karen Lambert Realty You. And today I wanted to discuss with you a little bit more about investing because, I get people coming to me all the time, and I went to like the best person I could find out there to help you learn about investing. And I want to introduce Ken Van Liew. How are you, Ken?
I'm doing great, Karen. How are you?
I'm doing great. So tell me a little bit about you. Introduce yourself to everybody. How can you help us? Because I know you can, but I want them to know.
Sure. I've had an interesting life, just grew up in the metropolitan area of New York City, which was always exciting, and it kind of grew on me like, I guess, like a fungus almost. I could never leave it. It's just, that may not sound right, but New York City was always great, but I could never find anywhere in the country that was building skyscrapers. So I, was fortunate to build some skyscrapers, but I started, as, going to college. Mom and dad said, go off to college and, study hard and get a degree and get a job. And, I went ahead and did that. And then I had twins at 31 years old, and I really couldn't afford, diapers and formula and have this life that I wanted. And I was a construction super in New York City. I grew up in a small town near Rutgers University. I was an all-state football player. I had some discipline from, high school football. I played some college football. And, at that time I was working in construction. I guess how I got there and how I got into real estate was, in college, I wasn't the smartest tool in the shed. I was a really good football player, but I created the 6-year plan. So it took me 6 years to get a 4-year degree. And I was really glad today. I still with the same woman. I met her in Calculus 2 class, taking it for the 3rd time. So she taught me how to study.
And say, was she your tutor?
Yeah. Fast forward to getting married and having twins with the same woman where I was. I figure I'd give you a little bit of things to laugh about, but some foundation. Here I was 31 years old. I was a super. I had failed my professional engineer's test 4 times. But I was making a lot of money as a super in a project. And I built myself up to project manager on 30-story buildings in New York City. And then I eventually built one on my own. And it was just really exciting. But my claim to fame was looking out at New York City one day going, I really want to have an extraordinary life. My first project, because the only thing I knew was construction, was I built 113 bed assisted living using other people's experience and other people's money. And that's how I got started. I just never looked back. And that led me into real estate, where I eventually learned how to invest. And I did residential and multifamily, land development, and then decided to write the book. And, you could ask me all kinds of questions. I'll just keep talking like a broken record here.
No, that's fine. So, people come to me and they think they have to have just tons and tons of money. What would you tell people that are looking to invest?
That's a great question because, I came from, a blue collar family. Not that I don't want to sound, blue collar, white collar. My dad, put on work clothes every day. He went and climbed telephone poles, and he was a chief lineman for, public service, electric and gas utilities company. And my mom was a bank teller. And I think our household income when they first got married was like $3,000 a year or something. It was crazy. And we never had a lot of money. I had this belief system. My dad, frowned upon white collar workers, and money doesn't grow on trees. And you start to believe what you hear sometimes,
Oh, yes.
And, my uncle, who happened to be on Wall Street, used to bring me to the trading floor. And I kept seeing, this Wall Street and, us struggling for money. And I kind of believed, this is how it could be. Like maybe I could get a house in the Hamptons one day, but I didn't believe it until later on in life. And, it wasn't until, I was on a golf course that I got invited to a golf outing. I felt guilty going. And I started like daydreaming, like, wow, maybe I could belong to a country club. Maybe I could tell my story and get money from investors at a country club. And, kind of shorten the story, it worked. I had this belief system that, I had to have the money myself, but all of a sudden I found myself where I told a story. Someone gave me $100,000. That led to me buying a 12-acre property. Then I raised another $400,000, and I started using other people's money and getting experience. And after a while, my whole mindset changed where I started to say, wow, you're actually always raising money, because you're just always, you have to make it part of your fabric, so you don't really need money to get started. I even proved after that how you can wholesale. We did 137 deals in 1 year, residential deals using other people's money. So if you think
Okay.
you need money,
I want to stop you a second.
yeah.
So how does that person who, let's say, doesn't have the money or even hang out with the people who have the money, how do they interject themselves into that environment where they can find potential investors?
Yeah.
What would you advise there?
Yeah. So one of the things, and it all starts with the idea. So if someone has the idea that, I would like one day to have, $5,000, $10,000 coming in, to my mailbox, where I get to, drive and check out a property, how would I do that? So if they, because it doesn't matter what your education is, what your experience or what your proximity is, if you can ask yourself an empowering question that, how do I get from A to Z on that idea of getting a check every month?
Right.
And if you can look at it from the sense that, if you go in and get like confused, like, oh, wow, I have to learn every market and have to get location. It actually starts within yourself, right?
Okay.
And, it's a little bit about presentation, where, it starts with confidence and being able to explain your story and idea with some certainty, because people are going to listen. Everybody loves real estate, and you're telling your story like, hey, I have real estate, or I'm investing in real estate, and I'm looking to put a team together so we can collaborate and, all benefit mutually. So it's really about just asking yourself the right questions, and figuring out how to move that ball forward. And that's all with the mind, right? Because if you ask yourself, I can never do that, or how would I ever be able to do that? That's not going to give you the right answer versus, well, everybody loves real estate. There's tons of money out there. COVID has changed the whole dynamic of residential.
Right.
There's so much opportunity, and it's
Absolutely.
it's the real estate between your ears, I always say, that you have to focus on.
I do believe that, a lot of what we believe in is how we achieve things. And if we think that we're not going to do something or be successful, then that's exactly what's going to happen, because that's what you believe. So we do have to work on the mental processes inside ourselves as to how we believe and what we think is possible.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right. So again, with this, someone new, they don't, how would they start? Like, they don't have experience. So what would you tell somebody brand new, the best first step?
Yeah. The first step, honestly, would go like, say to yourself, so if someone wants to buy, a 6-unit apartment complex, first thing what I would do is I used to take pictures of like what I wanted to buy. And, once you visualize, you have to get a visualization. It's kind of maybe an old cliche, but when I once upon a time cut all these pictures out of all these houses and put it in one of my books here on the shelf, and I would look at it, and then that eventually changed to bigger buildings, and I kept looking at it. But, if you have a vision,
Kind of like a vision board.
Almost like a vision board, like,
Yeah.
I wrote down a 6-story brick, pictured it in North Carolina building, and I own it. Like, so, the first thing is, if you want to buy a 6-unit in a certain area, like, find out and take a picture or find a picture of what you want to buy and pick an area, because that's the first step in manifesting what I believe what you want. And from that, you go and look for that. And obviously we have the power of the internet. Back when I started, it was classified ads in newspapers.
Yes.
Now you can go, okay, that's specifically what I want. And you see a value in the location, and you just start to take one little baby step at a time. Because if you look at it that, I have to find it, I have to get money, I have to manage the property, it could be very easily overwhelming.
Right.
And I always believe, like, in order to see the 4th step, like the first 3 steps get you to the corner, and then you got to peek around the corner.
Yes.
So you're not going to see the 4th step unless you take the first 3.
Okay.
So don't get intimidated by any steps past. Just go, what are 3 things that I could do, or what's the first thing that I could do today, and just break it down and keep it simple.
So here's a question. We were talking a little bit about COVID-19, and it's changed the market a bit. I know, some of the investors that I know personally have family multi-unit residential, that people haven't been paying rent. What are you advising people on that now?
Yeah, it's interesting. So you have a lot of things. So when you say advising people, you're saying the actual owners now, or advising people that are not paying the rent?
Owners.
Got it.
Yes, the people who've
Yes.
invested in these properties, believing that they would get their income monthly like they had been normally. Sometimes there's a problem, but not in this capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, and it's a difficult advisement at this time, because, what's happening is, what I found when is they don't even actually know where they stand exactly. Right. Because people had lost their jobs. Everything became sporadic. Just over the last 2 months, time has been flying so much, probably the last 4 months, have people, have these residential owners, including myself, start to realize, like, who's going to come back. And, everybody's taken full advantage of the protection, and we don't have as much protection. So, we did find, in a lot of our commercial buildings, we were reducing rent to extend leases. Residential, we've been, doing workouts with banks. It's a difficult situation right now. I mean, I've actually was glad that I didn't own as many multifamily.
Right.
We're very heavy in medical office. We have a lot of development rate stuff. Most of my models, we used to always sell condos out. So, so I've been actually looking at it from the standpoint, does it create opportunities? But what we're finding is owners are, giving us the NOI from last year, and we're like, well, can you really tell us, like, really where it's at right now?
Right.
So, it's been interesting. So, obviously, I think from an owner's perspective, from a value standpoint, their properties have increased in value because, rentals have become, very, very important now, because people are upgrading their rentals, people that are upgrading from rentals into single family. So the whole residential market is kind of doing something that's never done before. And, I think it's going to work out well. I think it's going to make an adjustment, and properties are just going to have a new set point on value.
I would have to agree with you.
Yeah.
So when you started investing in the stock market, right? Is that how? And I believe I read that was your drug of choice. And that's how you got into investing into other properties? Is that, tell me a little bit about that. I noticed that in your book, and I kind of,
I actually did a lot of stock comparison. I was never a big stock guy, honestly. I invested a little bit in stocks, and I tried it where I said, can I understand this, and stop losses, and puts and calls, and to me it just was never tangible. So I guess having the construction and engineering background, the next point of my evolution was the real estate. So I kind of I talk a lot about the stock market in the sense that I believe you can create like a diversification similar to the stock market through real estate investing and through the different market types and markets. But so to be perfectly honest, my wife was the one that did more of the stock market investing.
Nice.
And she was always very corporate based. She created some patents for L'Oreal. She was a cosmetic expert. So I don't want to take credit when it's not due.
Right. One thing I noticed too, you were talking a little bit in your book about cryptocurrency and real estate. How has that changed at all since you wrote it? Because I know there was a little bit of a dip in the cryptocurrency, but now legally they're changing things.
Yeah. So what I was alluding to when I was trying to connect some dots there when I was writing the book, there was a lot going on with the artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the blockchain, and the cryptocurrency, I guess, was the vehicle that was using blockchain at the time, or vice versa, right? And what I started to notice is that there was one entity in New York City, I forget the name, Lessian Partners, that opened up the first commercial blockchain fund. Now there's actually several things happening with the blockchain, and they're talking 5 years. The liquidity ability in real estate's really going to change because of the blockchain. I still have to get on the train, because it's probably going to be going really fast.
Right.
But that's what I was trying to touch upon in the book at that time that I was doing research. And it was funny because when I just looked, I think there was 2 back then. There's already 10 now, and that was only 2 years ago. So things are really evolving around that whole blockchain technology. And I just heard someone speak this last week in Dallas on it, and he's actually doing this first triple net lease fund using blockchain technology, which I thought was pretty fascinating.
Definitely something to pay attention to.
Yeah.
All right. So back to investing. You provide a service for people. You help train people, teach people. Yes. No.
I do. I've been advising clients for a long time, and I guess I would say lowered, not necessarily the scale. I've lowered in what I do, because I can reach more people. Doing high rises in New York City doesn't enable me to share, because it's like this own little world of swimming with sharks.
Yes, yes.
And after a while, getting nibbled on all the time, you're like, I just want to hang out and help people. But what I did was, I had all this stuff in my head, and built skyscrapers and designed engineering for multi-acre sites, and learned how to construct things. And then I did it a few times myself, and in writing the book, I really just said, how can I pay it forward, because that's what's really making me feel fulfillment. Obviously it's I believe 2 things. It's you have to be growing at all times. You can't just hang out on the side of a mountain.
No, you don't get very far.
growing or falling, right?
Right.
Climbing or falling. And the other thing is contribution. I learned that in 2001. I was with Tony Robbins in Hawaii, and the towers collapsed, and I lost my best friend. And the next day I climbed on a 50-foot telephone pole and stood on top. The following day I walked on 45 feet of fire. But my biggest takeaway from that profound week where I got stuck in Hawaii was we did a contribution day after the towers collapsed. And 3,000 of us dispersed across the island into, we were in groups of 75. So you could figure there was probably 40 groups. And my specific group went to an abandoned hotel, and we actually painted the exterior of like a large portion of this hotel. Nice. It was like 70th. They had all these 5-gallon jugs, and we're painting. The point I was going to get back is we got back, and it changed my life. There was a video that showed like 50 teams of 75, like doing these chores of contributing, like people at hospitals, like other people digging ditches, our team painting. And it brought everybody to tears. And literally people that had all the money in the world went back and like started feeding the homeless. And, I came back and, giving stuff off of my back, because I lost my best friend that week, and I learned the power of contribution. So, I decided to kind of give everything I've ever created, just give it away. And I'm not saying it's totally free, but it's free versus value.
Right.
But I created the global real estate investment enterprise, and it includes my modern wealth building formula, and my financial freedom protocol, and how to master real estate development, and my 11 secrets of real estate investing, and the golden nuggets, and the 60 pitfalls of real estate investing. And then next year, if you're part of the enterprise, you get my real estate master university that's coming out in a box. So I don't get in trouble like Donald Trump or whatever he used to do at Trump University. But that's what I'm all about. I just figure, I've been blessed with a wonderful wife for, I've been with the same woman 38 years and three amazing
Awesome.
kids. I had twins when I didn't think I could have kids. Then I had another daughter just out of the blue. I've been blessed with everything I want, so now, I can get to pay it forward. And we do it through education, or if people want help, just, getting on the front line. If you have projects, we help people. One of my friends just bought a $17 million project. He's closing tomorrow. He wants to structure it, put it together, syndicate it, start paying himself. And I'm like, well, you came to the right guy. I'll show you how to do it.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that. Syndicating and paying myself.
Yeah.
I was watching some videos earlier and you were talking about that. So how do I pay myself 19,500 a month or whatever? 29,000.
Yeah. This is how I did it. I had built projects. So, you can imagine it because, it's all in your head. So you could see someone building a project and go, okay, I could hire an expert like Ken Van Liew to build that project.
Mm-hmm.
But the point that on any project, any investment, someone has to do the work and you're entitled to get paid. So what kept me up late at night was this thing called fees. Like one of the chapters in my book is called Fee Gold.
Right.
And I figured out there was 7 ways to pay yourself fees. And since I didn't have a lot of money, I had no money. I'm like, if I could just put the deal together, I could pay myself. So
right.
I said, if I can get a little piece of the pie, that'll be great because I'll learn how to get bigger pieces of the pie as we go forward. So my whole method to my madness was, how do I get a $10 million project in the pipeline? I didn't know the answer. I said, first ask yourself the question.
Right.
And then I could pay myself a 5% development fee because that I know how to do. I could sign a development agreement. And that's what I figured out how to do. I met a dentist who I didn't know what it was at first. He goes, I got a certificate of need that says I could do 113 bed assisted living facility. I'm like, really? I'm like, I can build that. That's how it started. It was like by accident, And
well, that's great.
The funny thing was, I honestly, I didn't know exactly what I was doing. I said, listen, 113 beds. I said, I'll pay you a certain amount per bed, because I don't know if I can get 120, so I
Right.
agreed on a unit price. He loved it because I was incentivized, to get as many because I'd have more revenue, which incentivized him to support me.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a deal like no money down. I wrote a refundable check and I took that idea and I got the approval. But literally after signing that deal, I put myself as a line item in the budget, development fee. And it was 30 grand a month. And I signed an agreement with the entity buying it, with KJV Development. And my investors were like, yeah, if you're going to bring it from here to there and get the approval where this land that you just bought is going to be worth 1.2 and you can build an assisted living, we'll give you the money. And I just put a story together. That's really all it was, like storytelling.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's
But,
great.
I had a little bit of experience to back it, but that doesn't mean you have to have the experience.
No, I think in most things in life, and I tell people myself, most of the things that I've done and been successful at, I didn't know what I was doing at all in the beginning, but I felt I could do it,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I educate myself and then I go from there.
Yeah. That's so true. And that's what you have to do. I think it's, as we all know, there's 2 primary fears, the fear of being rejected, the fear of failure, and that stops, a lot of people in their, their process mastery, right? So
Right.
if you're not picking up the phone or you're not pursuing your dreams, there's a breakdown in your process. And that means you got to work on your self mastery so you can get the confidence to.
Right. Because nobody else is going to work on my dreams for me.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, exactly. But we're having a hard time remembering.
I can't count on
sometimes.
myself. Yeah. No, I know. Like, we're not taught that though. We're not taught that when we're children, that we create our own reality and that our beliefs help us manifest what we create, and I think if we'd be taught that sooner in life, maybe we wouldn't have so many people out there struggling.
Yeah, it's so true. You know, they may think we're hokey or something, but I believe in manifesting.
I do too.
I believe the world has, a synchronicity
Yeah.
where, and I don't know if that leads to telepathy, but regularly I think of things and people and my phone rings. It's kind of
I
scary
have the
sometimes.
same thing. Yes. I'm like, I was just thinking about you.
Yeah,
Or
just like,
or I'll call them and they're like, you were just in my mind. I'm like,
yeah,
I guess we
yeah.
connected
And
somewhere out there.
yeah, and it's sometimes like you haven't talked to somebody in a long time, and it happens to me all the time. And I think it's more important to emphasize the point that, part of effortless prosperity is being able to believe and manifest things, right? Because,
Yep.
the universe is pretty powerful. And if you don't have that working alongside of you, it could put some friction on things,
Absolutely. Our attitude determines so much.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that and our beliefs. Well, it was wonderful, wonderful talking to you, and I appreciate your time. And I'm going to put links together to how to get to hold of you. And is there anything last statement you want to make to the crowd here about investing or any life lessons that you've learned or tidbits?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest successes is, like journaling and having a good morning routine. One of the things that I do every day is, I write down what I'm grateful for,
Mhm.
and then 3 things that I'm going to accomplish today that'll make the day great. And
Nice.
I'm just big on measuring. So, if I have plans in my personal life and my business life, I rate it every day. So,
Oh, that's
you know,
awesome.
today is going to be like a 9 out of 10 on my personal life, maybe even a 10 out of 10 if my wife and I practice dancing for the wedding.
There you go.
I had a chance to go see my mom and dad this morning, and business I'll rank at the end of the day, kind of like what I projected and how I did. But don't be afraid to measure yourself, because people sometimes confuse measuring numbers or measuring goals to and failing a measurement to being like a failure, right?
Right.
And then they're afraid to fail when in reality failure doesn't exist. It's just
Exactly.
a matter of changing your approach or changing your view.
Like riding a
Um,
bike, you got to get back up there.
yeah, so that's basically what I want to just leave everybody.
All
Just
right.
never give up. Live your dream at all
I,
times.
I have heard never give up. I don't know how many times in the past, like 2, 3 months.
Yeah.
It's like this never ending message that keeps coming to me. I'm like, okay, I hear you.
Yeah. Well, I used to hear T.D. Jakes say that to me 20 years ago. That T.D. Jakes, the preacher, never give up. But one of my saying is just always keep your dreams alive. Because
Right.
sometimes the lights get dim.
Well, again, I think it's another thing that we're not taught, because I think some people believe, once you get married and you have kids and you just got a job, that's it. That's all that life is. It's this constant, continual, same in and same out every day. And they think they can't really go for anything they want, or, I can't have dreams. I'm a mom. What are
Yeah,
you teaching your children? You're teaching your children that once you get married, that's it. There's nothing. Teach them, to go after what you want and desire.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, Karen, thank you so much for
Yeah.
having me on your show. I really
No,
appreciate it.
thank you. It was very nice talking to you.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right, great. Well, thank you. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and hopefully
Sounds
we'll
good.
talk again. All right.
Sounds great.